All right, good morning, everybody. Clean energy revolution is taking place across America. There is tremendous economic opportunity for countries that invent, manufacture, and export clean energy technologies. A senior scientist at Electric Power Research Institute with focus on clean energy solutions for problems related to energy and environment, she has conducted research in the area of energy efficiency, water energy nexus, and solar storage space, for which she has won several research grant awards from the California Energy Commission. As a NASA Graduate Research Fellow, she's been at Stanford University too. I'm very proud and honored to introduce Dr. Sudeshna Pavi as a moderator for this panel.
Thank you, Sarvat. Thank you, everyone. Let me see. So thank you and welcome everyone to the panel on clean energy. And as everyone is trickling down, let me just make a quick observation, actually. When we were coming down, I noticed a lot of the folks from the Indian community are actually nowadays driving the electric cars. So it's not the Honda or the Toyotas anymore. And so it's more the Nissan Leafs and the Volts that are of choice. So when the Indian community makes a choice towards a particular kind, it surely has some economic reason behind it, don't you think? But at the, behind it all, actually, there is some economic imperative, especially from California and again from nationwide as well. And it all goes back to the clean energy because the thought was that the electric cars will connect to the grid, which will draw from the generation which is more renewable and less from the fossil fuel, and hence reduce the greenhouse gas emission. So California and a number of other nations have been leaders and taking big steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that is the driving force, that has been the driving force for the Clean Energy Initiative. And if you don't know, currently the clean energy, especially just solar, companies hire more people than Google, Facebook, and Apple combined. So that's quite a big number. And that has been there since until this time. So now we are facing a number of different challenges, but there are also a lot of impetus even from the side of India. So we'll talk about that as well. But currently, I would directly like to go to the clean energy panel. And with me, I have three eminent leaders in this field. And I have Kumar Duvur, who is CEO and head of products of PowerScouts. I have Deep Chakrabarti, who is founder and CEO of NX Systems. And I have Ram Narayanamurthy, who is Senior Technical Executive of Electric Power Research Institute. And I stand corrected, Kumar is a founder and head of product. Okay. And there is, I just introduced the title because we are going to ask them about their work and go in detail. And so without any further ado, I'll step into the discussion. But I wanted to say we'll first have a panel discussion in the beginning among the panel. And I'll ask some direct questions and discussion. And at the end, we'll have time for audience questions. Sounds good? All right. Can everyone hear me fine still? OK. So Kumar, could you tell us about what is your work that pertains to clean energy and also about your company a little bit?
Yeah, sure, certainly. Thank you, Sudeshna. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. As Sudeshna mentioned, I'm founder and head of product of PowerScout. PowerScout is a AI-driven digital marketing company that's focused on solving a big problem in clean energy adoption. So let me ask you this. Can I have a show of hands here on how many people already have solar panels on their homes? OK, quite a few people here. How many of you know that the price that you ultimately paid for the solar system, right, within that price, the cost of sales and marketing is actually more than the cost of the solar panels itself? How many of you knew that? Okay, few people know this, right? That's shocking, right? Imagine, you're going to a car dealership, you're buying a car, and the sales commission given to the guy at the dealer, right? If it's more than the value of the engine of the car, arguably the most important part of the car, I mean, that's exactly what's happening in solar, right? For residential solar systems, about 20-25% of the cost structure is actually in sales and marketing, and our company is trying to disrupt that. So how are we trying to disrupt it, right? So we are using all the latest deep learning and machine learning frameworks and infusing that with programmatic digital marketing to disrupt that. So let me explain what I mean by that. So we are in a vertical where it's not like people are waking up in the morning and says, hey, it's a sunny day, I want to go solar today, let me figure out how I do that, right? That I would love for that to happen, but that doesn't happen. It's a low engagement category. Nothing is broken, right? If people switch on a power switch, you get power, right? So there's no kind of urgency to act. There are a few people, of course, who are green-minded, and those people have already adopted. But how do you take this product and make it a mass market product? So what we do is, so PowerScout.com is a marketplace where consumers come and they can find, they can figure out if their home is right for solar. They can find out who the best installers are in their area. But how do you get people to actually investigate and look into solar, right? That's a big problem in a category where that's not top of mind for people, right? So what we've done is we have built a lot of technologies. Like, for example, we have built a convolutional neural network that can look at satellite imagery, right, from Google or Bing, and can pick out which homes already have solar panels on it. So why did we do that, right? So we did that for, if we can figure out the homes that have already adopted solar panels, right, and we can learn, basic characteristics about those homes, then you can apply those same models and build a propensity model to figure out which homes are like that and figure out those homes that are likely to adopt solar. So that when you do sales and marketing, you actually, focus on those homes. So today, the dominant way that solar is sold residentially is actually door to door, right? This is how, for those of you old enough, remember, this is how vacuum cleaners were sold in the 1970s or 80s when they, first came out, right? Door to door, people showing up and, hey, you want to see this? It's pretty cool, right? That's exactly kind of how solar is sold. Very inefficient, right? Especially if there are a lot of homes where solar is not viable, it doesn't make sense. So with these propensity models, we can figure out which are the homes likely to adopt solar, and then we infuse that with programmatic digital marketing. So people, whose homes are not suitable for it, they won't see our ads. So only the people whose homes are suitable for solar, they see the ads, and then that's how they get, we have a lot of educational content. We show them an ad, somebody clicks on it. We know that now they're intrigued by it, right? Then we show them more educational content, slowly kind of educating them down the funnel, eventually to a point where they say, haha, I'm interested. Let me now get quotes from the best local solar installer. So it's a journey. So we are trying to essentially educate consumers and get them, more interested in it.
Thank you, Kumar. And Deep?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Deep Chakraborty. I'm co-founder and CEO of Enact Systems. Enact is now one of the largest software platforms as well in the solar space. Unlike PowerScout, we are more B2B focused. And as of last year, which is our third year in business, we had over 200 companies now using Enact. What it does is the entire life cycle from customer proposals, design of the project, financing, contract management, as well as installation management for these projects. Everything is on a cloud platform. We have over $400 million of solar projects on the platform last year, 2016, and we've won a couple of awards from the US Department of Energy. We are still very US focused. I've met a lot of people today who are asking about our entry in international markets. We do have a first customer in India now, but we are still very US focused, and we'd love to get your thoughts about international markets and learn also from some of you on clean energy.
Rob, about your work?
Morning, everyone. So thank you again. Thanks, Adeshna, for the invitation. First, I guess the work we do right now, I look at what we do with, say, clean energy. I mean, we work in a decidedly less fashionable area. We are crawling around homes and doing insulation and ducting and kind of really getting deep into people's homes and buildings. But the overall goal of what we're trying to do is looking at clean energy as a way of improving quality of life for people. There is multiple aspects to it. There is absolutely, solar is a big part of it. We see that everywhere. It's part of an integrated solution. But then there's also energy efficiency. We work on improving air conditioning systems. We work on improving water heating systems. And then there's also a big component with regards to energy storage. But the overall goal is, how do you work with people? How do these things integrate into people's lives? And then finally, how does this integration integrate with the overall electric grid and the electric system? Clean energy right now is not, yes, it's a series of widgets, but it's also more about how do you look at it from a systematic perspective, and how do you put that in the context of the entire system. So part of the work we do at EPRI, the research we do, is focused on this area of what we call advanced energy communities, which is looking at the entire electric system from the bottom up, from the customer's point of view. 5 years ago, everything was top down. If you talk to anybody in the utility industry, they were like, yeah, we're going to go put this in somebody's home or somebody's business, and then we're going to control it. The whole paradigm is changing. It's all about how customers are adopting technologies, and then how do you take those technologies to build a better system. So the research we do right now is focused on that, and ultimately, I mean, we look at, okay, how do we work with communities, low-income communities, home buyers? How do we improve their lives and their quality of life using clean energy?
So thank you. So we have, I think, 3 angles here. Kumar and others also correct me. So Kumar, you are coming more from the customer side, right? And Deep, yours is more from the provider side. And Ram, yours is an integrated approach for including energy efficiency and the grid integration aspects. So we have several aspects. One thing, though, you notice that we are a little solar focused in this panel. Maybe it's because we are in California, so that's our fault here. But I believe some of us also have looked into other energy aspects of it. So what are the other aspects of energy apart from solar that you see can sometimes limits, but can have huge impact if there is a breakthrough in those areas? Is there anyone who wants to take up?
I can go first. So this is my 10th year in solar. And having worked in the industry, as we see the growth in numbers of customers going solar, we're seeing that it is becoming the foundation for energy in the business or in the home where solar is already installed. For example, if you're a homeowner and some of you have electric cars, it will impact your costs of owning the car. And similarly, if you're running a business and you've put solar in, it will impact your cost of energy, whether you're managing it yourself or outsourcing it. So on our platform, we have now started, of course, offering the full analytics for a building, whether you're doing a rate switch from a time of use to a tiered or back and forth, or you're going from, let's say, a single meter to 2 different meters for the building. It's a very common problem if you live in the US. A hotel or something like this building might have 10 electric meters. They may all be on different rate plans. So it's not easy to say, well, I'm going to go solar. What is my savings over the next 10 years or 20 years? And then to be able to predict, if you add storage to the building, how will that change? If you add some more energy efficiency measures along the way, as the cost declines, how will that impact the return on your solar investment if you're putting $1 million on this roof? So those are complex questions, and when businesses are now investing in solar, they want those answers before they check. It is no longer about signing a PPA from a third-party provider and letting them deal with it. We're seeing a huge shift from third-party finance to customer-paid solar. And customers asking those questions. They're asking those questions at the boardroom, at the operations level. One of our customers is a large oil company. They're putting solar on a lot of gas stations, and they have to plan the entire business around that at a very detailed level. So to answer the question, we're not seeing isolation. We're actually seeing solar meeting all of those different points. And integrated solutions is really where we see the future.
Okay. Do you have any?
So yeah, I think it's interesting, Deep, that you mentioned that, hey, it's moving towards customer-owned systems, right? I mean, solar has traditionally been driven on finance. And I think the financing aspect is something that's really evolving right now. So I see a lot more traditionally, if you look at energy improvements to industries or homes or building, it's somebody pays out of pocket, they expect to be paid back in like a year and a half. And now we are seeing more and more of the financing models coming in, both regulated and unregulated financing models. That could be a game changer, because technologies that traditionally had a much harder time finding adoption because they had a longer payback, either for residential, commercial. Now you don't think about technologies in terms of payback, you start thinking about cash flow. And the more we can impact cash flow through different financing models, the more I think you're going to see a lot of technologies that traditionally have had a much harder time getting into the market, getting greater adoption.
Great, thank you. Kumar, do you have any points?
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to that, right, I think if you think about clean energy, there are two broad places where you can deploy. One is either you deploy them at the source of consumption. That's what I think what we've been talking about, which is you put it on homes, you put it on buildings, right, where it's right at the source of consumption. The other side is you can build these large utility scale projects elsewhere. You're generating power and then you're transmitting them, right? That's always been the classic power model, which is you build all these massive thermal plants, gas plants, right, and then you pipe power. So that paradigm is changing with clean energy. It's becoming more decentralized. But at the same time, clean energy still has its place even in the old central model, right? So if you look at, for example, in India, India has seen a lot of traction in building large-scale solar farms, right? Not as much traction on the rooftop side, but a lot of traction on the large-scale side. And in the large scale, I see solar obviously getting a lot of traction. You know, wind has seen a lot of traction. In fact, even more so than solar to date, right? And also, we are seeing the advent of large-scale storage projects as well, right? Because obviously, with wind and solar, they are intermittent resources, right? They produce when the conditions are favorable. They don't always match when you need them, so you need storage to stabilize it. So you see applications of clean energy both on the large-scale side as well as on the distributed, around buildings and homes as well. So we are in exciting times for clean energy.
Thank you. Actually, you answered part of my next question. But that is about India. I wanted to ask, what if you had any experience or any stories or thoughts about it. And the reason I ask is because India has stepped up with a big mandate regarding electric cars recently. Probably some of you attended Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala's talk recently, who was the advisor to Prime Minister. And they want only electric cars to be sold by 2030, and that kills a lot of birds because that gives energy security and also, I mean, not the electric cars, but eventually grid integration and also the pollution. So I wanted to, with this backdrop, I wanted to ask if anyone had any experience or thoughts about clean energy initiatives in India and how we can probably collaborate. Anyone?
So I'll go first. So our first customer in India is a large PPA financing company, probably the largest PPA financing company. And what we learned from them is it's a very challenging market for distributed solar because you have almost every construction company now there trying to install solar systems, and you have all the different price points trying to compete for business. And then on the utility scale side, you have very low pricing for bids. So generally, one segment affects the other. So it's a very challenging space to do business. That being said, the good news, however, for all of us in the room is, unlike the US, where the energy policy has always been a big political problem, in India, we have finally found an administration that is very focused on long-term energy policy, which is favoring renewables in a very strong way. So obviously, electric cars, storage, solar, and also changes in how solar is financed, the land policies around how do you allocate resources for projects. Everything has changed in the last 3 years to make it more faster. So from our perspective, it's a very exciting market. It's going to be different for us versus the US. We don't see the same types of companies winning in India versus here. We see the need for new business models. Customers in India have many more challenges besides saving money, which is the driver in California for solar. In India, you have to make solar work with the diesel generator. You have to make it work for intermittent grid. Small towns in India, you have an intermittent grid. So a lot of very exciting times ahead, I think, from a a tech company.
If I may, I guess I'll be approaching it more from an analysis side, right? So when you look at the grid, right, I think there's two challenges that have traditionally been there in India. One is the generation side, the other is the distribution side of the grid. I think we are getting better with the generation side. There's more renewables going on the generation situation's improving. But if you think about the U.S. electrical grid, right, it's been called the engineering achievement of the 20th century. Which means, there's a lot of money that went into it, right? So to do that level of electrification or getting that infrastructure spread everywhere is expensive. So I think in India, the opportunity is actually a bottom-up approach, a very different approach from our massive electric grid that's out there right now, which is to do these, and I think the government's already moving in that direction, which is to start doing smaller microgrids and nanogrids. And when you start doing microgrids and nanogrids, you are essentially concentrating your power availability and your power balancing at the local source. And what it does is it provides a certain level of, it essentially takes out the cost of running all these huge transmission lines and the huge distribution networks. But you do the microgrids, and then you start patching up the microgrids later to get more reliability. But within the microgrids, one of the interesting things about microgrids is people think of it as a bunch of electrical equipment that's all put together. But I remember somebody talking about it as energy efficiency is the vegetables you have to eat before you have the dessert of renewables. So, and in a sense, when you're doing this bottom-up approach, and this is, I remember coming here and saying, okay, hey, there's all these yellow incandescent lights, right? In India, you walk in, we've always had these CFLs, and we have had more efficient lighting. It's just a way of life. And so you start from the bottom up and you build it up. So you start with very efficient lighting, very efficient cooling systems with very efficient buildings, and then you build up the microgrids. And that's one way of providing power and essentially addressing the energy poverty that's pretty rampant, right? So you start building it up, then you put all the pieces together. And what that means is that, to Deep's point, it's going to be a different set of technologies, it's a different set of business models, but I think it's going to be very exciting to see how to build a grid in a very different manner from which we have been traditionally used to.
Yeah, I agree with all those points, right? I think to me, what is really exciting about what's happening with clean energy in India is just, how much lower the costs have come down. 7 years ago, when India started this big utility scale program, India invited power purchase agreements, which are essentially, private players will build the power plants, and then the government will procure power from them at a certain rate. The rates were around 11 rupees or 12 rupees per kilowatt hour, which is the unit of electricity. And the latest auction that cleared just last month, the rates have dropped to like 2 rupee 34 paise or something like that, right? Almost like a 70%, 80% reduction in power, right? So today, large-scale solar power is cheaper than coal in India, right? Coal is at like 3.5, 4 rupees, right? And then you also take on the fuel price risk if you go with coal. Right? Who knows what the price of coal is going to be, right, over time? But it's solar, fuel is free, right? Once you put in the capex, that's it. You're not incurring additional costs. That is fantastic. The other thing as well, even on the smaller projects, the other thing that's exciting is, obviously with my current company here, I'm focused on the residential solar system, right? In the US, typically you see prices of about $3.50 a watt, $3 a watt, somewhere in that range for residential systems. The same system in India right now is getting sold for $1 a watt, right? Which is like, 1/3 the price of what you see in the US. Phenomenal, right? I think there is still scope for further reduction in costs. And I think, like my panelists here said, in India, you're solving different problems. It's not always about saving money. Sometimes it's about, hey, how can I even get electricity when I don't have it? So you need different models and so on. But the underpinning is that these phenomenally low cost structures really bode well for a massive scale up over the next decade or so.
Thank you. I'll switch a little bit of the gears. This conference is about engineers to leaders. So I just wanted to ask you if there's any story behind your going towards clean energy, or was it the first 2 words you spoke and jumped right in? So And if you can throw in IIT's name as well, that'll be great too. So,
Sure.
But anyone can take
Yeah,
it.
I can start here. I had a very convoluted story on how I got into clean energy. So I graduated from IIT Madras in electrical engineering, but then I did nothing with engineering right after that. I went into banking. I worked at Capital One Bank for several years. I thought at the time that was me in engineering, and now I'm in finance, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a bean counter, right? Did that for several years. Then I went into business school. At the time, one of my buddies from IIT Madras, he introduced me to solar. I had no idea that solar was picking up. Even at the time, the cost structure was quite high. And then I got really intrigued by the potential for it. Did a lot of just reading and just researching into it. The thing that for me, and at the time I switched into clean energy. That was when I made a switch from finance into clean tech, and I've been in clean tech for the last 10 years after that, right? The thing that I think fundamentally resonated with me beyond the market opportunity and the potential, especially with solar, was if you think about solar, right? I mean, it's kind of a primal source of power, right? And if you compare that to coal or natural gas, I mean, they are also just fossilized solar, right? It's about trees that have captured the solar energy and then have gone into the ground and you're excavating now, right? So if you have a primal source of power, and if you can figure out the technology to directly tap into it, why go through all these convoluted, inefficient processes? I think that the concept was very appealing to me. That's when I made the switch, but it was not an immediate switch into solar. I spent some time digging into my first couple of years in clean energy. We're digging into energy efficiency, wind, solar. I think there is a lot of potential for all these technologies. But I think with the tremendous amount of cost reductions that you're seeing there, and I think we're an exciting time in human history of potentially moving to if not 100%, close to 100% clean energy over the next several decades.
Yeah, California has a new mandate on the 100% renewable by 2045. So very exciting times. Deep, Ram, anyone wants to talk about your exciting?
Sure. So I started my journey, of course, before clean energy. My first career was in automotive. So after IIT Kharagpur, as a mechanical engineer, I built cars in Michigan for Chrysler for almost 7 years. In fact, 2002, we were piloting the electric minivan at Vegas, and nobody would look at it at that time. And so after my business school, I got a chance to live in Europe for a couple of years, and that's kind of where I discovered the solar movement in 2006, and got lucky to be hired by a German manufacturer of panels. At that time, was a large player, and helped them build the U.S. business distributing solar panels out of Arizona. So my journey in solar has been pretty much from the beginning. The industry at that time was about half a gigawatt a year. And now in the US last year was 16 gigawatts. So it's a fast growth. And so from my perspective, what I find fascinating about solar is that you have pretty much 4 disciplines meeting together at the point of the customer. You have, of course, the technology, which is pretty well baked. The panel is done. I think there's not much left to do. The Chinese have nailed it. But you have a whole electronic and there's a delivery mechanism around the panel, which is very innovative, which is the engineering part. Then you have finance. You are financing energy for 20 years. This is pretty innovative. And for those who are coming from insurance and banking, this is a $10 billion category, which will become a $100 billion category in the US alone. It's a huge category. And then third, you're still dealing with construction. And all these things we talk about here, coming from IITs, you cannot deliver solar on the roof or on the ground without a very good construction company. Mm-hmm. And that is the challenge in this business model, which hasn't been figured out even by Solar City. How do you make money doing it? So when you take all of these disciplines together and then try to solve problems, it's a very exciting space. It's going to be evergreen for the next 10 years or so in terms of innovation, a lot of new things to come.
I think, we call it clean tech now. I don't know when I back myself into it, but yeah, I mean, I'm also a mechanical engineer from IIT Madras, and so came here, did my master's, and after that worked in the air conditioning industry for about 4 or 5 years, and then from there transitioned to the startup world where we were actually doing energy storage systems. This was in 2003. This was the time where we talk about batteries being, I don't know what the number is right now, but they were about $10,000 a kilowatt at that point, right? So, and solar still hadn't taken off. So, I was leading product development. We were developing all these thermal storage products, and it was pretty interesting, pretty exciting. So around 2005 or 6, suddenly everybody is now starting to sink money into energy, right? And we get, okay, so what happened? Suddenly everything changed. And so I would say 2007, I think we saw two major innovations. One is, that's the year I think this price of silicon started dropping like a rock. So that's when solar started becoming a lot more affordable. The second one was the iPhone. And today, I wouldn't say everybody, but almost everybody has a smartphone in their pocket. But the ramp rate of solar that Deep's talking about, it's pretty impressive compared to energy technologies that have been there before solar. So yeah, I mean, and then after that, did a couple of startups before ending up at EPRI. And so it's been an interesting journey. It's been a lot of learning. And I would say the one thing that that is really satisfying is the fact that it's not just technology. It's not just about the technology. It's about learning to work with people. There's a lot of relationship management that you have to do in clean tech. There's a lot of working with construction trades, the home builders, the plumbers, the guys putting in air conditioning systems, right? So you have to learn how to interact with all those trades to be very effective in this field. But that's also, in a sense, what drives the job growth. That's also, in a sense, what helps people improve their quality of life. So it's a very satisfying journey. But I think what really helps me in the journey is the fact that the technical underpinnings that we started with are extremely valid, even more valid than they were 20 years ago for being in the clean tech industry.
Thank you. So is there any, with respect to, since we just talked about careers and transitions, do you have any, first of all, quick advice if somebody's planning towards going towards this career? And also, is there, since a lot of people in the Bay Area have information technology background, is there an intersection? Because sometimes people might not be aware that there's a lot of intersection. So anyone wants to take just a quick step?
Well, so we are B2B software. We are enterprise software company. We are partners with Salesforce, with CRM, with SAP now on the ERP side. So we deal with technology all the time. And our challenge is, unfortunately for our company, we cannot afford to pay the same packages that Salesforce can afford to. So we always say, when you join clean tech, be ready for a clean cut on your pay. And you have to think far, and you have to really feel good about what you're doing. You cannot just expect to make your same packages. That being said, I think the first wave of clean tech was very sparse in terms of success stories. Even companies like SolarCity haven't done well financially, or Sun Edison. I don't think that's going to be the case the next 10 years. You're going to see a lot of success stories coming in the tech space, not just software, even hardware. We're seeing companies now innovate both software, hardware. So the next 10 years, I think, is going to be more exciting for people looking to quit their traditional, let's say, software or hardware experience and coming into clean tech. That's my view.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that, right? I think the last kind of the VC cycle was all about clean tech. There are a lot of Bay Area VCs that got burned by putting money into hardware clean tech companies, right? And finally, the Chinese beat us pat down here into how to make it cheaper. I think now the new phrase is clean web, which is the kind of the next cycle, which is the intersection of all this software, data science, and clean technologies. But the hardware is there, right? And the costs are getting, over time, they're just going low and low, right? Just with scale, you're able to incorporate all the learning that comes with it. But the next level of innovation is going to be around, like for example, what we're doing on the data science side, right? We are applying it more on the sales and marketing side. Deep's company is applying it more on the entire process flow, on how are consumers, both residential and commercial consumers, how are they transitioning? So there's a lot of innovation that's happening now around the hardware, right? Software, data science, and so on. So especially that's great news for folks here, right? If you're looking to switch careers, right? Then you can bring the same software skills or data science skills, right? You're just switching verticals. Obviously, like Deep said, right now you probably would have to take a haircut just because of the investment cycles, the cycles we are in. But that keeps changing, right? What is not hot today will become hot like in a couple of years. So I think it's a great time to get into clean energy.
Okay, I would probably say if you're looking to chase money, this is probably not the industry to come to. But if you're really trying to make an impact, right, make an impact on people's lives and make an impact on society, I think this is a great industry to be in. So I never thought, even 5 years ago, that I would be having job recs out looking for software engineers. What's happening is that there's a big change happening. It's getting a lot more data-driven. It's getting a lot more driven by customer devices. And then when you think about the systems-level integration, all of that requires software. All of that requires some level of expertise with embedded systems. And so, so there's definitely a great future for technologists in clean tech, whether you do software or hardware. But come at it saying, hey, I'm going to make a difference in people's lives. And if you come at it with that, I think it'll be a very satisfying journey for you.
Okay, thank you. So last one, I just wanted to have a quick comments from you all, whether, some of you mentioned that, Chinese have already solved the hardware and but those are the comments that I was thinking that, do you think that it has already been solved? Is this the next frontier we should aim at, or is there some other frontier that will take this to the next level that will make it a complete success and have 100% renewable is the goal, and that's where we'll reach?
I think there's a lot left to be done. I think we should not get discouraged about the fact that 95% of solar panels are made in China, because you need that cost base to build the next wave of technologies. A good example, I was, until Tuesday this week, I was in Dubai with a customer. If you go to Google Maps and just look at Dubai, you cannot look at the home. The Google image is not clear enough to be able to do the same designs we do in the US with panels on the roof. Now, how do you solve that problem? And we have to solve it because the mandate from the Dubai government is every new building has to have solar, whether it's a home or business. So we need drone images. Mm-hmm. And now for drone images, as you know, drones are legally banned. I think in India, I think that's changing. In Dubai, they are legal, but you have to now enable technologies to allow drone images to be used for solar panels. So that's an example of innovation where we're at the beginning of time.
Okay.
So I think we should not get discouraged about the panels going to China. The best part, I think, is yet to come. I think the tech brains in this room, if you apply those skills to some of these problems, I think there's a huge opportunity.
Also, I think there's some opportunity with respect to innovation of the panel material itself. There's a lot of research going on in a lot of universities. I think with that, I'll hand over to the audience for questions. Gentlemen, Dr. Yeah, okay. Do you have a mic, anyone? Or? Sorry, okay, sorry, you have to go, yeah. Next.
Okay, my name is Dr. Kailash Gupta. I'm also electrical engineer, and I worked in 4 banks, and now I'm a disaster manager. So disaster management has to deal with the poverty. And what Kumar gave figures about 2 rupees or whatever figures, I think there is a misunderstanding that India is not a homogeneous country. You can't generalize about India. India is a very complex and diversified country. In India, currently, about 20 to 25% of the population doesn't get electricity. And I live in Jaipur city, which has a 3.75 million population. Even I don't get regular electricity. Now, and I talked to a company, local company, which manufactures the solar panels, and to have on my rooftop, 3rd floor installed. And and I wanted to have a demonstration effect, more for not for myself, but to to educate or show. But he said it doesn't make economic sense. so it will not be worthwhile. But I am willing to be Goena pick for you, Kumar, if you could identify or do, and Deep, if you can install, I'm willing to offer my, I live in Jaipur only, I'm here till mid-August. So, but if you can help in other people putting solar powers, but the bigger question to you and everybody to solve is that if the 20 to 25% of the Indian population in remote villages, etc., they don't get electricity, what can we do to reduce the cost and have distributed local power generation? Of course, there are many solutions. Gobar gas plants are there. My employee was working and I went to his village. And there are solar and many things are there. But it is a bigger problem and we should be tackling those problems. Not only India, it is for around the world also.
Thank you, thank you. Would anyone want to tackle the question about how, would anybody like to comment on it?
Sure, I mean, thank you, sir. Thank you for the question. We need pioneers like you to take the first step in places where people are not adopting solar panels. You're right, India is not a homogeneous country. A lot of different types of consumers, right? I mean, yes, the 2.5 rupees is great headline news, right? The reality is that still there are a lot of people who don't even have electricity. So you need a lot of models, large-scale plants. You need microgrids. You need rooftop solar, right? There's a lot of innovation that needs to happen. I think, again, there are a lot of avenues as well for people here to get involved in what's happening in India, right? If people have the expertise, you can give your expertise, right? If people have capital, you can give your capital to facilitate, especially investments for renewables in underserved areas. So there's a lot of ways for the community here to get involved.
Yes, and I think Ram mentioned before there's a microgrid opportunity that skips the power line and produces power. But those are all in the planning phase, but it's being thought about. Anyway, next.
I have a question about.
Yeah.
So I'm a power trader myself. Sorry. Hello, my name is Puneet Agrawal. I went to IIT BHU in India, and I'm a power trader myself in the US. I have a question about how prepared are the grid operators in India to take up all these large-scale solar farms, wind farms, etc. Like here, California ISO, ERCOT, Midwest ISO, they have done a great job in integrating all these systems. For that, they had to change policies. They had to have a better forecasting team, a very, very good IT team to take care of the data that's generated by the forecasters, by all these plans, etc. Change their modeling, how they model the grid, etc. So how prepared is the Indian grid operator, and what's the biggest policy change you think should be done to integrate the intermittent renewable when you really don't have a big base load matching generation fleet in India?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I actually spent 2 years in India before I started my current company, PowerScout. I started a company in India called Krinis Power. So we look very closely in the Indian market on solar, right? The grid operators in India obviously are behind the ball in terms of where either the European operators are or the US operators are. But I think in India, the transmission folks are better placed, right? There is much more strength on the transmission side than there is on the distribution side. Especially, I think India can absorb large-scale solar plants easier compared to absorbing rooftop solar and other distributed ones, right? Just because there is congestion in the substations, last mile connectivity is not very good. That's why you've seen, right? I mean, the government has set a very aggressive mandate, 100 gigawatts in the next 5-6 years, right? And of all the progress that's happened so far over the last 3-4 years, it's 80% of the progress has been on the large scale plants, just because it's easy to do that, easy to get land permitting done, easy. If you don't have a good transmission line, it's just easy to build one, right? But if you're trying to improve last mile connectivity, that's more challenging. I think that's where the next set of focus has to be if you want to really promote the distributed solar power, and especially if you want to go to microgrids, right? I mean, you've got to create policies to promote that. And I hope both policy and also reduction in costs, especially on the storage side, would also play a key part in enabling. Just because, like you said, India doesn't have a great base load, you need complementary technologies like storage to really come down in costs over the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, thank you so much. Actually, we are ran out of time, so if you have any additional questions, you can ask the panel members outside. And thank you so much for joining, and discussing and for your questions.